friends, welcome to my channel. I'm glad you can join me. Come on in and grab a seat. I have one waiting for you. In my library, there's always a seat for you. So in today's video, we are going to discuss none other than another book haul. Today is Monday, February 20th, and I went to a local bookstore about 20 minutes from me. I had not planned on arriving late, but my husband, he was wrapping up some last minute things with a friend, and that took a little bit longer than anticipated. But nonetheless, he assured me that we would be there in plenty of time. The plan was for he and the dog to stay nestled in the warm, comfy Jeep while I shopped the store. And so upon entering the store, I chose my aisle when, not long after the announcement came over the intercom. Attention shoppers, the time is now 7:30. Please make your final selections and bring them up to the register, as our store will be closing in a half hour at 8 p.m. The good news is our store will reopen at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Oi, what kind of damage am I going to do in a half hour? Lots. And I think I did a fabulous job. First book I chose was The Betrayal of Anne Frank, a cold case investigation by Rosemary Sullivan. So I chose this book because I had previously read The Diary of Anne Frank, and her father, Otto Frank, had written a book. I read that, but it was 10, 15 years ago. So the name of that book precisely escapes me. I will reference it and then I will put it up here in the corner. So both were excellent books. Now this, in reading what this book is about, it says, like almost every other American, Vince Pankoke, or Pankoke, P-A-N-K-O-K-E, learned about Anne Frank in school. When the retired FBI investigator visited the Anne Frank house well into his career, he was astonished to find that the question, who betrayed Anne Frank, had never been decisively answered. He said he loved nothing better than a challenge. Ooh, my kind of guy. And so he signed on to the cold case investigation immediately. You go, Frank. But as the project continued, he had moments of wondering what he'd gotten himself into. The case was more than 75 years old. The betrayer and most of the immediate witnesses were probably dead. And there were so many other complexities. We couldn't get any tougher circumstances, he said. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was what he needed to do. Okay, so that sounds exciting to me. And I am grateful that he took that challenge on, because now I get to read all about it. Because had I been in his shoes, I definitely would be thinking like he was thinking. I would want that question answered. Who would betray her and her family like that? So that is going to be a very interesting read, and I am super excited to read that one. Oh, my apologies. I've noticed in previous videos, I just toss those books down and all you hear is thunk, clunk, like I'm some bull in a china shop. And so I am going to mind my manners, and I am not going to do that anymore. All right, the second book that I chose is my girl. She's my girl, Celine Dion. My Story, My Dream. And as you'll notice, I got a used copy. I love a memoir, and I totally respect Celine Dion and her roots, where she came from, and where she took herself through the help of Renee, her mentor, and the love of her life. And I'm sure this is going to be a charming story, and I will take away a lot from that, because as I said, every book that I read ends up here, unless there has been one or two books that ended up there, but I know for sure this book is going to end up here because she's already here. And then after completing this book, she will just be further cemented there. I am a compilation of all the books that I have read, and to carry her along with me will just be pure joy. I would be honored to be able to do that. So I paid for this used edition. Let's see. It was $25 originally, and I paid $6.95. And this book is in excellent condition. And that is quite a bargain at that price. The next book I chose, because my tastes vary, is a book called Phosphorescence. Phosphorescence. This, well, I am on the fence with, I'm on board with this. I am not on board with this. I hate that lotus flower pod looking thing. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. And I had that image in my head at one point, and I could not get it out. It seems like every 3 minutes I was envisioning that lotus pod, and it just drove me crazy. And one of my favorite people in the world is Goldie Hawn. And one of my favorite books is Goldie Hawn memoir, A Lotus Grows in the Mud. And so I had to get over that yuck. And I had to fight that image off tooth and nail on a daily basis until I can finally come to terms with that. And I had gotten to a point where I just did not think about that pod as much, and I was getting better and better. The creepiness of it was getting further away from me, and the thought of it was getting further away from me, until one day I was in a local craft store, and when I was standing in line for the checkout, I just turned my head, and there were a bunch of floral arrangements, and in that arrangement was a wooden lotus pod. And oh, I had to go there, but I didn't want to go there, and it just creeped me out. I am now 98% at ease with it. I can do it. I can look at a lotus pod and I can be okay with that. So much so that I'm able to buy other books with the imagery on it. When I read a little brief description about what this book was about, I was sold on this topic. I will share that with you right now, and then you can decide for yourself if this is a book that might interest you. So it's a deeply personal exploration of what can sustain us through our darkest moments. After surviving a difficult heartbreak and a battle with cancer, acclaimed author and columnist Julia Baird began thinking deeply about how we, as people, persevere through the most challenging circumstances. She started to wonder, when we are overwhelmed by illness, loss, pain, tragedy, outside of our control, how can we keep putting one foot in front of the other? Baird went in search of the magic that fuels the light within, our own phosphorescence. In this stunning book, she reflects on the things that lit her way through the darkness, especially the surprising strength found in connecting with nature and not just experiencing awe and wonder about the world around her, but deliberately hunting it daily. Baird also writes about crossbeams of resilience, nurturing friendships, and a quiet faith, pursuing silence, fighting for what she believes in, understanding the importance of feeling small, learning from her mother's example of stoic grace. She also explores how others nurture their inner light, interviewing the founder of the modern forest therapy movement in Tokyo, a jellyfish scientist in Tasmania, and a tattooed priest from Colorado, among others, weaving together candid and moving memoir with deep research and reflections on nature and the world around her. Baird inspires readers to embrace new habits and to adopt a phosphorescent outlook on life, to illuminate ourselves and our days, even in the darkest times. So now, I've seen this book a dozen or more times, and I picked it up, I read about it briefly, I put it down. I don't like to go into dark places. I'd rather be happy and upbeat. But I also feel that it is important to go into dark places because when you interact with people on a daily basis, some people are not born positive thinkers, and that is not their fault. It's just the way their characteristics are. It's just the way they are constructed, and that is perfectly fine. So by me going into dark places via books, I am better able to sympathize. Reading books like this, it just helps me to understand it a little bit better. And so I can be my most compassionate person and try and bring that person out of the darkness to the best of my ability, or maybe guide them in a certain way. So the book that I'm referring to is another used copy, and it is Brain on Fire, My Month of Madness, Susannah Cahalan. This is going to be a roller coaster of a ride. Unlike A Little Life, which was complete fiction. Although fiction, I'm not saying that the way the tragedies played out in that book couldn't play out just the same in someone else's life, because it very well could. But to me, the tragedy events in that book were a little far-fetched, and I just could not get on board with it. I found it very hard to believe. I'm not ashamed to say I ditch very, very few books, but that is a book I definitely ditched. I had no time for that at all. None. But unlike that book, this book is a true story. And so the compassionate being in me wants to know, what did this girl suffer? And how did she suffer it? And could it happen to anyone like you and me? And if it did, how would we deal with it? So just briefly, an award-winning memoir and instant New York Times bestseller that goes far beyond its riveting medical mystery. Brain on Fire is the powerful account of one woman's struggle to recapture her identity. When 24-year-old Susannah Cahalan woke up alone in a hospital room, strapped to her bed and unable to move or speak, she had no memory of how she'd gotten there. Days earlier, she had been on the threshold of a new adult life, at the beginning of her first serious relationship and a promising career at a major New York newspaper. Now she was labeled violent, psychotic, and a flight risk. What happened? In a swift and breathtaking narrative, Susannah tells the astonishing true story of her descent into madness, her family's inspiring faith in her, and the life-saving diagnosis that nearly didn't happen. A fascinating look at the disease that could have cost this vibrant, vital young woman her life. Parentheses, people. Brain on Fire is an unforgettable exploration of memory and identity, faith and love, and a profoundly compelling tale of survival and perseverance that is destined to become a classic. This story has a happy ending, but take heed, it is a powerfully scary book. All right, so this I know that I will definitely complete because it is a true story and because this woman suffered it, and I want to give her that respect. So definitely, and at the bargain price of $4.95. That was a steal. Okay, so I bought last book haul, I bought 7 books, and oddly enough, I got another 7 books. And I would just like to take this time to make mention. A lot of you have been reaching out to me and expressing how relaxing you find my channel. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am for that comment alone, whether you subscribe or not. Just knowing that at the end of a busy, hectic, chaotic work week or home family life, with all the traffic out there, with all the hustle and bustle of the grocery shoppers out there, whatever chaos is entering into your world, to know that you could sit down in a chair, pour a cup of coffee, a tea, a wine, a beer, a water, whatever is your drink of choice, and just sit there and chill out. Just vibe to the calmness, the peacefulness, and the warmth that's generating from my heart to you and inviting you into a safe, calm, relaxing environment. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that and you. So thank you so much. All right, now the 15-minute announcement comes over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 15 minutes left and our store will be closing. Kindly make your final selections and bring them up to the register. We will once again open at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We hope to see you then. Okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Well, look at this son of a gun. Toil and Trouble. The name alone got to me. Toil and Trouble. Well, I'm down with that. And also, when I read The Radium Girls, that book is green and black and gray, and I just found that stunning. And so 2 things made me pick this book up. The colors, black, gray, green, and the name, Toil and Trouble. It is a memoir by Augusten Burroughs. Now dig this. Here's a partial list of things I don't believe in. God, the devil, heaven, hell, Bigfoot, ancient aliens, past lives, life after death, vampires, zombies, Reiki, homeopathy, Rolfing, reflexology. Note that witches and witchcraft are absent from this list. The thing is, I wouldn't believe in them, and I would privately ridicule any idiot who did, except for one thing. I am a witch. For as long as Augusten Burroughs could remember, he knew things he shouldn't have known. He manifested things that shouldn't have come to pass, and he told exactly no one about this, save one person, his mother. His mother reassured him that it was all perfectly normal, that he was descended from a long line of witches, going back to the days of the early American colonies, and that this family tree was filled with witches. It was a bond that he and his mother shared, until the day she left him in the care of her psychiatrist to be raised in his family. But that's a whole other story, I'll say. After that, Augusten was on his own to navigate the world of this tricky power, on his own to either use or misuse the gift. From the hilarious to the terrifying, Toil and Trouble is a chronicle of one man's journey to understand himself, to reconcile the powers he can wield with things with which he is helpless. There are very few things that are coincidences, as you will learn in Toil and Trouble. Ghosts are real, trees can want to kill you, beavers are the spawn of Satan, houses are alive, and in the end, love is the most powerful magic of all. Those we throw away are diamonds. A Refugee Search for Home by Mondiant Dogon. One day when Mondiant Dogon, a Bagui Tutsi, born in the Democratic Republic of Congo, was only 3 years old, his father's lifelong friend, a Hutu man, came to their home with a machete in his hand and warned the family that they were to be killed within hours. Dogon's family fled into the forest, initiating a long and dangerous journey into Rwanda. They made their way to the first of several UN cities. Dogon's family fled into the forest, initiating a long and dangerous journey into Rwanda. They made their way to the first of several UN tent cities in which they would spend decades. But their search for a safe haven had just begun. Hideous violence stalked them in the camps, even though Rwanda famously has a former refugee for a president in Paul Kagame. Refugees in that country face enormous prejudice and acute want. For much of his life, Dogon and his family ate barely enough to keep themselves from starving. He fled back to Congo in search of the better life that had been lost, but there he was imprisoned and left without any option but to become a child soldier. For most refugees, the camp starts as an oasis, but soon becomes quicksand, impossible to leave. Yet, Dogon managed to be one of the few refugees he knew to go to college. Though he hid his status from his fellow students out of shame, eventually he would emerge as an advocate for his people. Rarely do refugees get to tell their own stories. We see them only for a moment, if at all, in flight. Syrians winding through the desert, children searching for a Greek shore for their parents, families gathered at the southern border of the United States. But through his writing, Dogon took control of his own narrative and spoke up for forever refugees everywhere. As Dogon once wrote in a poem, "Those we throw away are diamonds." Okay, that sounds like a great book. My final selection for the night, at a bargain price, and this was not reduced, is a classic. Ernest Hemingway, The Sun Also Rises. Look at that, is the beauty of a book. A beauty. I am a hardback person all the way, but I love a paperback that you can just pop into your purse on the go and have at the ready when you have a couple free moments to spare. I have not read any of Ernest Hemingway's work, and so I figure now is as good as time as any to delve in. Ernest Hemingway's famous first novel tracks the lost generation of the 1920s, from the nightclubs of Paris to the bullfighting arenas of Spain, a modernist masterpiece. It is memorably narrated by world-weary journalist Jake Barnes, who is burdened by a wound acquired in World War I and by his hopeless love for the flamboyantly decadent Lady Brett Ashley. The Sun Also Rises is both a tragic love story and a searing group portrait of hapless American expatriates, drinking, dancing, and chasing their illusions in post-war Europe. So they are my 7 book choices within a 30-minute radius, and I think I did a fabulous job. Comment below if you have read any of those books. Comment below if any of those books pique your interest. My job in starting a booktube channel is to get you started on your journey and love of reading. I promise you, once you find the books that fit your mold, you will not be able to stop. It is such a calm, rewarding experience. It's peace. Peace in your hand, and it's knowledge in your head. If you don't like reading, you just are not reading the correct material suited for you. So my job is to help you find that, and my hopes are in introducing you to some of these books that I plan on reading. Perhaps one of them will be better suited for you. Now, before I close, I oftentimes grab a last-minute trinket before I hit that cashier. And yet again, I grabbed 2 darling bookmarks. One is, it's reminding me of a little bit Snow Whitey vibes. It's like foresty to me. It's a beautiful color of light mustard yellow, and we have some pretty flowers in green and cream and rose colored mauve. We have a big old friendly grizzly bear, and we have a beautiful little deer down the bottom, and it's very innocent. I'm getting the vibe of innocence from that, and sometimes the devil in me could use a little house on the prairie innocence. And so that one we chose, and the other one we chose because I love these colors together: dynamite, pink and red. Be a nice human. And sometimes, yet again, the devil in me needs to be reminded. Although I always try to be a nice human, there are times where the devil may get a hold of me, and maybe I don't choose my words correctly, nicely, properly. But anyways, so that one, that was the dynamite one. And who doesn't love beads? Who doesn't love, I love a bead. So that is it, friends. That is my book haul for Monday, February 20th, 2022. I'm so glad that you joined me. I always look forward to a visit with you. And until we can spend some time together, allow me to just say, without lecturing, take your vitamins, eat healthy, drink your water, say your prayers, and read your books. Bye-bye.